Hello.
Hello, can I please speak with Amy?
This is she.
What up, she? How you
What's up?
doing?
I'm good. How you doing?
Oh, good. Now that I can hear you on my Bluetooth Rodecaster Pro device, I can't believe I'm interviewing Amy on my podcast. This is amazing. So, Amy, you have heard him before. You heard him on, I believe, the last episode where he interviewed me. I would like to introduce you to my very good friend, Don Swenson.
Hi, Amy.
Hello, Don. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good.
So, Amy, normally we interview people in the area and we bring them into the studio, but we will definitely make an exception for your awesomeness.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I would love to be there, though.
Oh, my God. My kids were just flipping out thinking, Don, I said to my kids, I was like, guess who I'm interviewing today? Amy. And they started freaking out and they're like, when's she going to be here? I was like, oh, shoot. Not soon enough.
Yeah.
So, Amy.
Yeah, I need to come up to see you guys, though. Yeah.
I know a lot about you, but I feel like I'm going to learn some new stuff in this interview.
Okay. Maybe so.
Let's get started. I believe we should probably get started with your work in stage managing, because that was like the first creative endeavor that you were doing that I knew about. How did you get started working in theater?
So this is probably something that you are going to learn that you did not know, because I don't really talk about this part of it. I got involved. Obviously, you know, mom and dad are both performers, so I've been around arts a whole life. Dad used to take us to, you know, band practice in bars when we were toddling around. But as far as me actually doing run crew and stage management and that kind of stuff, I lived in Pensacola from 2000 to 2002. And Pensacola, I thought was going to be a good idea for me. I left Tallahassee because I was drinking too much, and I was like, I'm going to go somewhere where I don't know anybody. And went to a brand new city, and because I'm me, I made all kinds of new friends. And it ended up not being a wise idea. I came back to Tallahassee because I was homeless for a period of time. I was living in my truck, and my parents found out about it. The only reason they found out about it is because I had gotten arrested for something.
What?
And
this is all before I met you, before Tony was your boy. Yeah, all that?
Well, he and I had been together before that. We dated before that, and then I went to Pensacola, and then we dated when I got back also, and that was when we got engaged and I met you guys.
Okay, so just for a reference, guys, the way I met Amy was in my early pro wrestling days. I had a tag team partner named T-Bolt, big, strong black dude, one of the coolest dudes around, and he was dating Amy, and I met her at a tire factory where she was working, and we had just the silliness ensued from there.
Yeah.
But wait, you were homeless?
Yeah, for about 6 months. I was living in my truck. I would park in the parking lot of the office that I worked at in the morning, like when the sun came up. I'd go over there, and my boss figured out what was happening because I was sleeping in my truck in a parking lot on the beach. And then when the sun came up, I would go to the office, and he figured out what was going on. So what he would do is he would get up in the morning, make breakfast for 2 people, come and knock on the window to wake me up and give me his house key. And I would go to his house and shower and eat breakfast and then go to work. And his family lived in Alabama. So every other weekend he would go and see his wife and daughter, and I would stay at his house or his condo, townhouse, whatever, for that weekend while he was gone. But I was living off of literally 50 cents a day of Jolt soda from the gas station and a little Debbie cake. And if I splurged, it was $1, and I bought boiled peanuts. So
what?
Yeah.
Oh my God. And you know what? That story, what he did for you, I could totally see you as well. I know Amy very well, and I know she would do the exact same thing for a person. 100%.
Yeah. So they found out about all of it and brought me back. And part of my when I got arrested, which that's another story, was community service. And I was able to do community service at the theater. And I didn't realize that the theater would be community service. I actually started doing my community service hours at Red Cross, and Mom was like, "Hey, I've got this show. Like, I need some help. Can you come and help me out?" So I did. And when I turned in my hours at the end of the month, my PO was like, "You went from like doing like 40 hours a week to like 12 a month. Like, what happened?" And I said, "Well, I've been doing, work at Taos Little Theater." And he was like, "Well, that's community service right there." So just in the shows is how I got involved with doing my community service hours. I started off as run crew, just like moving stuff around backstage. And the very first show that I worked with Mom, she was the producer for Barefoot in the Park. And I was supposed to just be run crew. And our director wanted everyone to do a company bow at the end of the show. And they want to do individual bows. So booster night, when the press is there and when everybody who donates funds to the theater is there, they do individual bows. And the director flips and runs down the stage, like poking fingers in the chest of the actors. We have to take his keys. They pull him off of the show. But his partner was the stage manager, and their best friend was the sound designer. So when they took the director, everyone else walked.
Whoa.
And the technical director of the theater, which was a resident technical director, was friends with the director. So he went and took the stage manager book, like the Bible of the show, before we opened that night, and took it back to the director. And fortunately, I had a schoolgirl crush on the soundboard operator, and I saw what he was doing in the book. So we found out at 5:00. House opened at 7. We found out at 5 that everything was gone. So myself and one other guy in the theater community ran around Tallahassee looking for 70s compilation CDs to throw together the sound. And I just kind of winged it and was like, okay, I remember this cue and this cue. And we put it together. It was supposed to be 2 weeks. We ended up having to add a third weekend because it was so successful. And I said, I'm never stepping into the theater again. This is the worst thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then I did the next 22 shows after that with them.
Well, yeah, that's how theater works. Yeah. I'm never doing this again. So next show, that's amazing. So, so what took you from that theater to other places?
Actually, Tony T-Bolt, the one that Sam was just talking about. He was living in Tampa, and I was in Tallahassee. And when I moved back to Pensacola, and we got back from Pensacola to Tallahassee, and we got back together, we got engaged, and he was working for a law firm. He was a paralegal down in Tampa. So I was going to move down there after we got married. So I started looking at jobs down in Tampa. And one of the first places that I applied was Busch Gardens for a seasonal stage manager, and got the job. Tony and I actually split up in May. I moved down there in September of 2005, and I was in the Tampa Bay area from then until now, minus a quick stop in Tallahassee during COVID.
Whoa.
I didn't know you guys were engaged. Did I know you guys were engaged?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably did.
Well, yeah, you had to have, because that was when Merck and Laura were kind of hanging out, and it happened in Titusville. We were staying at a hotel over there for, I think, a show at Mount Dora or something, and they were in the room next to ours. I think they called you and woke you up.
Probably.
Yeah.
Things are a little hazy from back then for some reason.
I don't know. Well, we won't talk about that.
Oh my God, what a crazy story. So you were like doing community service and that's what got you started on this venture?
Yep.
Can I ask what you got arrested for?
No, we'll talk about that.
Fair enough. I cannot wait to hear that story. Don looked like his mind was blown through that whole story.
It was kind of all over the place.
No, it's an incredible, like, I don't know. I don't want to say it's serendipity, but it's like a lot of things had to line up for this for this experience to happen.
They did.
So, like, all right. So you're at this theater, doing this community theater, working through these 22 shows. How over what length of time did you wind up doing these 22 shows? Was it like a 6-show season, 4-show season?
It was from, let's see, I was back in Tallahassee from 2002 to 2005. So that 3-year span. So it was shows. Pretty much every show from the time I did Barefoot in the Park in 2002 up until right before I left. I worked on every show in some capacity, whether it was a stage manager or ASM or run crew chief or prop master. I did every aspect of theater for that particular.
That's like 8
time
plus
period.
Shows a year. Are you still tired from that experience?
What I am still tired from is Howl O Scream for 17 years. Or 14 years. That's what I'm really tired from. Yeah.
Oh man, Halloween, when Halloween season came around, you knew Amy was going to be put to work.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah, it was.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead. What were you saying?
Howl O Scream is definitely a lot of work, but it is by far the most rewarding thing that I have done, just because of everything that I learned and all of the people that I met and all of the things that you experience when you're doing an install like that. When you're installing an event like that, you're working 40, 50 hours a week, usually 50 to 60, honestly, as you get towards the end of it. And 70% of your year is on overnights and weekends. So you don't have a life outside of work. So the people that you work with become your family. Yeah. So I've been in weddings and I'm godparent. I'm the godmother to 2 of my technicians' children. And, we've been through marriages and divorces and births and people passing and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very, very big part of my life and still is, even though I don't work for them anymore. So yeah.
I want to go into the details of that. I want everyone to know like what goes into that job. But Amy, I just want to share with Don the experience I had going to your Howl O Scream. So it was so cool, man, because you always wonder what goes on behind the scenes. And she took me to the back where people were doing their makeup. And it's true, like these people that she's talking about that she grew great relationships with, you could feel it when they were back there, the way they would joke with each other and the way they were so close. Like it felt like a family, And they did the coolest thing that I still talk about to people to this day, where it was so awesome, dude. So I'm walking with my tag partner Mercury. We're just going through one of, I don't know, maybe a scare zone or something, and all of a sudden I hear like one zombie going, Sam, and then another, Sam. And before you know it, dude, I am being chased down this freaking scare zone by like 20 zombies, all working for Amy for sure. But there was nothing like that. I got my own personalized scare zone for a few minutes. It was cool.
Oh, wow. So like with the Howl O Scream, how did you get involved with that? Like, what have you always had the same job with it? Like, how did that? What's your experience with that?
That was definitely an evolution. So when I first started with Busch Gardens, I was offered a seasonal stage manager position. So it was just during the Halloween season that I would stage manage one particular area. So from 2005 to 2008, into the 2008 season, I stage managed a zone called Restless Death, which was then later renamed and became Eternal Midnight. But in 2008, they put this group back out in the park that has always had this really bad reputation for just being, I'm trying to think, I have to figure out how I can say it and not cuss.
You can totally curse. Go ahead.
Lay it on us.
Okay, cool. I didn't know about kids or anything. So they're just they have this reputation of being hellraisers and total assholes and hard to control, but they're a fan favorite. Like, people in the park really love that particular scare. They're called sliders.
What? The sliders. I remember them. What would they do that got them that reputation?
Because it was a very selective group, there were only 10 people that were cast in that role. And unlike any of the other roles in the event where you could have people sub in and out, you couldn't sub in and out. This was very like cherry picked. They were looking for the right build. They were looking for the right swagger. They were looking for the right, athleticism, because you had to be able to stop on a dime in mid slide and stand up and be in control. And
yeah, can you explain? Can you explain what a slider is?
Yeah, so the sliders, excuse me, they wear steel toe boots, combat boots, with a steel toe cap on the toe, and then they have PVC. It's an inch and a half, depending on who's sliding, because some slide harder than others. Pipe that's cut in half, and then they put hockey pad, like goalie pads, on front of, like at the top of that, to protect the knee. And then they have gloves on that have fingertips that have like steel on the fingertips, and they usually carry a pipe. And what they'll do is they'll run and drop to their knees and slide, and with the toe caps and then the fingertips on their gloves and their pipes, when they slide, they drag all the steel across the aggregate, and it sends up sparks.
Yeah.
It was so cool. So cool. And so these guys gained that reputation by what? Just being a crazy crew?
Yeah, but I mean, for the most part, honestly, they really were jerks. Like, that was part of why they took them out of the park. They used to have them in the park, and then because they were causing so many problems because nobody could control them, they took them out of the park and they stuck them in a house where they couldn't go anywhere. And then they weren't as effective because they didn't have enough room to, slide. So when they decided to put them back out in the park, Scott Swenson, who's the one I was saying has the same surname, who is kind of the father of Howl O Scream. They call him the Haunt Daddy. He was like, there's only one person in this event that can control these guys. When they told me that I had the sliders, I thought they were kidding. And I was like, shut up, Brian, you're kidding. He's like, no, I'm really not. Like, you're the only person that can control them. And I was like, oh, here we go. So, I had them from 2008 to 2013. I was the only stage manager that got saddled with the same group every year. And they told me the second year, because I was like, can y'all please put me somewhere else? And they're like, no, you're the only person that can deal with them. Like, you're not going to flirt with the guys. You're not going to become one of the guys. Like, you're going to be able to, you're the only person that will listen to them. So I did that for 5 years. And then after that, I actually started running the entertainment warehouse, which was at that point, I think it was 42,000 square foot at that point. But by the time that I left that role, it was 62,000 square foot. And it housed all of the props and all of the technical equipment, from, the top hats for the lights to the audio to cabling, all of the set pieces. When we were doing a build for any of the events or any of the theaters, the shows in the theaters, we did all of that. All of that was done at the entertainment warehouse. So I ran that for 3 years. And then after that, they pulled me back into the park and had me run as the technical stage manager for Howl O Scream and Food and Wine Festival. So that was everything from building the production schedule to working with all of the departments, handling all the logistics, being the liaison for our contractors and everything that they need, and artist load-ins, and the whole 9 yards.
So I want to say, like, clearly hearing all that, you must be starting to get a sense of how incredibly talented Amy is. But what I want to say to you, Don, something you need to know about Amy, which is like one of my favorite things about her, is, dude, if you need someone to have your back, like, she would give you the shirt off her back. She is and I'm not blowing smoke, she is the best person I know. She's up there with the best of the best. She is up there with the best of the best, I'm telling you. But at the same time, if you fuck with Amy, you are, dude. If you better run, you better be able to run, because she will mess you up, brother. I sent you that picture too of her throwing a roundhouse, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. She'll kick your head off, and I mean, I don't know if she can still throw high kicks, but I don't think she needs to.
I can.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Out of all those things, what was your favorite part of the job? Did you enjoy doing working with the sliders? Did you enjoy working in the warehouse the most? Which one was your favorite?
I would probably have to say it was actually like the technical stage manager, show manager of the event, simply because the most rewarding part of that whole thing, especially when you're the one in charge of making sure that everything happens and gets there on time, and managing all of these people, it's a lot of work. It's blood, sweat, and tears, Hang on just a second. Excuse me. And to have that opening night when the lights are perfect and the fog is perfect and the audio is perfect, and those guests get that first scare, and you hear that first like blood curdling scream or that nervous laughter, that, some people laugh because they get scared, and some people cry, and some people do this little two-step, and all the different reactions. But to hear the joy or the fear, whichever is supposed to be invoked, in the guest's reaction for all of the hard work that you and your team have done, that's hands down the absolute best part of the event every year.
You might not have an answer for this, but I'm curious. I'm sure in that giant park, in that giant endeavor, you've seen many, many scares. Are there, I was talking about the scare that I had where I was being chased by all your zombies and what have yous. Are there any scares that stick out in your mind that the people were talking about in the back, or something just so crazy happened, it's story worthy? Like, were there any scares that were that epic that you can remember?
So I didn't get to see a lot of scares because of what my role was, but I did scare a couple of times.
You did?
I did, yeah. Laurel and I were planning a trip to New Orleans when we were both getting divorced, and they opened up hours for performers because they didn't have enough performers for OT. So I was like, heck yeah, man, I'm down. I'll do it. So I scared in Deathwater Bayou in a drop door, and I still remember, like, I still laugh thinking about it. So I was in a drop door on the outside alley, and the whole thing was you drop the door down, you scream, and then you reset. And you're supposed to reset, like, do all of that within like 2 seconds, which is a lot easier than it sounds. So, and I could see I had a little peephole, so I could see where people were coming towards me from the bungee scare that was just in front of me. And this group of people are coming through, and it's like a bunch of bikers. And I see this guy, and he's with his woman. His woman is in front, and he's got on like the leather cuts and the, no shirt on. He's just got the vest on, and just like the typical biker kind of guy. And I dropped my door, and I screamed, and he jumped and hit the ground and was just like sitting there. And I couldn't even reset. I was like, my drop door is down. I'm fully exposed. And I am doubled over laughing, like crying, laughing. Cannot get my shit together. And all of his friends were laughing. And he finally like looked up at me, and he was like, you fucking suck. And I was like, I finally was able to reset. But that no. Oh, you know what we did though? I forgot about this one. Restless Death, the very first zone that I had. We were the only zone in the park that was a one-way traffic because our entrance was right at the exit to one of the shows. So we had to keep traffic flowing. And the Tampa Bay Bucks used to come through, like the first weekend, like the cheerleaders would come through or the football players would come through or, all these different elite guests, I guess I should say. So the defensive line comes through and they get like maybe 3 scares into my zone. And there's 3 of the guys that are in front of the rest and they get lit up. Like these performers are just ping-ponging off of them. And they're screaming and they turn around and try and run back. And I had to stop them and be like, sorry guys, you can't go this way. And they're like, what? I was like, no man, this is a one-way zone. You got to go all the way through it. I kid you not. These 3 defensive line players for the Bucks hauled ass through the zone, like shoving people out of the way, just trying to get to the other end.
Putting
and I was
all
like,
their training to work.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the Cats definitely got some goodies the next night for that one.
Hey, after a whole night, I always wonder about this. After a full night of working that job, of doing those is it like as exhausting as I think it is?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's 2, well, it used to be, it's changed now. Back then, there were 2 casts per venue. So you had an A shift and a B shift. And they all did a 30-minute set with an hour dinner break. But I mean, it's definitely like people legit train before Howl O Scream starts, because especially if you're in a role like the sliders or if you're in a bungee roll where you're constantly, jumping out at people, you've got to have your stamina up and you've got to have your energy up.
Can you explain how the bungee workers, how they do their scare?
Yeah. So we have a bungee rig, which kind of looks like a goalpost on the ground. And then it's got very similar to span sets, but they're, like if you put on like a climbing harness, you've got the bungee that clips in to wherever you're climbing. So they clip into these bungee rigs and then they have a platform, and the platform is usually set about 6 to 8 feet back from the front of the actual rig itself. And then they jump out at you. And of course, because it's on a bungee, it catches them before they actually make contact and pulls them back. And it's incredibly effective.
That's such a good scare. They get so close.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever actually gotten taken out by accident?
Well, I went this year to just Friday night. I went to Howl O Scream with some of the older former HOS stage managers. And the last house that we went to had a bungee rig, the first bungee that was actually manned, because I guess all of the other bungee performers throughout the park that night weren't there. And he jumped out, and he just happened to jump out right at me. And I don't know if I was too close or if they didn't have the rig pulled back far enough, but he tagged me when he came out. But it wasn't enough to be like, oh my gosh, that hurt. If it was somebody else, maybe they would have, but yeah, it happens if they don't have it. If they don't have it measured enough, and because and everybody jumps different too. Like you may have a more powerful jump than I would have. So
right, I didn't think about
that. What's a decent length for you may not be the right length for me.
God, there's so much to think about with that. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So what do you think about I don't really like these kind of things.
No way, dude. Have you ever been?
Well, not the Howl O Scream, but I don't like jump. I get super punchy when people jump scare at me, and I just don't like it. And I went once with was it Screamy Acres or whatever?
Creamy Acres. Yeah, I go every year.
Yeah, I went there once, and with an ex-girlfriend who is still an ex-girlfriend. Guys jumping on back of the hayride with a chainsaw and stuff, and I'm like, it's like, it's Don,
you've got this
weird.
look in your eye right now.
It's like it's like I'm at war with myself every time that I go through something like this because like I know this is not real. I also know that I very much do not like it. So what do you think that is? Because there's people who deal with fear in so many different ways. There's people who just scream, people who love the scream, people who laugh in it, and people who just like want to haul ass out of that situation. And we all know that it's not real. It's just a performance. You know, there's people who punch performers in the face.
It's got to happen sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. Like,
yeah.
What is that rules over people?
Well, on the
situations like that?
Yeah, Amy, I'd love for you to answer that. But Amy, you would also love to hear this. I took my family, not Sora. She's she's not right yet. She's a little lady. She'll probably go soon. But I did take Ashton.
Whatever.
And the other boys.
Sora would school everybody there. Don't you worry about that little girl.
Oh, you're so right. This year she's coming. But Amy, let me tell you. So we go. There's like 3 or 4 haunted, like houses or whatever, and we go through the first one, and then. As we're going through the second one, Ashy, my youngest son, goes, "Daddy, stand back. I want to go in front." I was just like, I'm so proud. So unlike Don Swenson,
yeah, I'm just a big chicken, just a scaredy Swedish man.
But I mean, seriously, Sam, does that surprise you? Like, Ashy almost got drop kicked when he turned the corner in his Chucky mask when I was there last time. Like. Of course, he's the one who loves it.
Yeah, Ashley can rock a scary mask like nobody else. I'm telling you. Yeah, I don't know. Amy, how about you? Like, if you didn't do all the production stuff and you didn't have all that experience, how do you think you would handle?
I was exactly like Don when I first started Howl O Scream. Seriously, like that's the whole reason why I didn't like going to haunt. Because I am the same type of person. Like, I react by hitting. And even before I started training in martial arts, I was not someone you wanted to be hit by. And so I purposely wouldn't put myself in those situations. But I got the job offer, and I was like, well, I'm going to be working. Like, it's not like I'm going to be, immersed in it the whole time. But what I didn't think about was that where my area was in the park, I had to walk through all of the other stuff to get to my area.
Part of the job.
So the first 2 years that I worked the event, as soon as the event opened for the night, it opened at 7. So as soon as 7 o'clock rolled around, I would take the back areas as much as I could so that I didn't have to walk through the park and through all of the haunt stuff because I just couldn't do it. But I finally got accustomed to it. But I mean, seriously, it took 21 nights for 3 years and rehearsals for me to be able to walk through it. And now it doesn't faze me. It doesn't matter where I go. If it's Howl O Scream, if it's Halloween Horror Nights, if it's Screamageddon or Sir Henry's Haunted Trail, any of the stuff around here, I could go to any of those and it doesn't affect me. I look at this stuff and I'm like, oh, you could have had a person there, or that lighting looks really good, or that audio sounds really good, or oh, you could have done, I critique now as versus, but I'm very much one of those people that tend to face my fears, and I get that from my mom. So, that's why I started skydiving.
You never, she's a skydiver. I want to go so bad. But you never, Amy is, she was born a black belt in throat punches. So, I mean, I think those guys were lucky that didn't happen.
But I think it's the adrenaline. I think, anybody likes that fight or flight. And especially if you're an adrenaline junkie, then you want to go to things that scare you.
I'm always, it's I'm always amazed by just the technology and the, whether it's just lighting, something simple or more advanced trickery in these things. I have some guys up north that I used to work with that run a haunted house every year, and just the stuff that they put into that once a year event is amazing. Now, when you're managing an event such as this, where are you in proximity to everything that's going on, and how do you monitor traffic flow and event situations?
So for Howl O Scream, my office was in the middle of the park, the backstage area. Of course, we have radios. There was a house tech manager in each house, and then a house technician that reported as the house manager. And everyone had their own channel. So I would be roaming the whole park. And then we also had, the park was broken up into 3 different sections. So we had 3 roamers in each section. So I would be roaming the park with, talking to our roamers and to the house technicians and the house tech managers to find out if there was anything that they needed. A lot of the time it was smooth sailing. Like the most issues that we had were things like, a slow night is the absolute worst thing ever for any haunt. And not because of the fact that there's not a lot of people coming through. So, the energy is down, but for the fact that if someone can come through your house or your zone more than once, then they learn where people are hiding.
Oh.
And then they start looking for those people so that they can throw something on them or spit on them or kick them, or they see an area that's dark so they can go over there and steal this, or they can break that. So those are the absolute worst nights ever. When you look at your presale, if your presale is, 7,000 people, shit's going to get torn up. You're going to be dealing with stuff by the end of the night.
How do you handle that? Do you guys just put more security out, watchful eyes? Like, how do you handle such a thing?
Well, you can't put out more security. We barely had enough security to make it work as it was. It's just, you just have to do more laps through your houses, do more laps through your zones, hope that you can stop it, and you learn, especially after like the second weekend, you learn where your problem areas are. Mm-hmm. So, to kind of add extra people there, have your technician stand in that corner, or have the stage manager stand here and the technician stand over here so that, they can see each other, but no one else can see them, kind of thing. So it can be tricky, but you learn how to do it and you figure out what works best for it. But it's just learning your houses and learning the event.
Wow.
And
so much thought.
When you think about like Busch Gardens, because back in the day it was owned by Anheuser-Busch, so all of their events back then were very alcohol driven. It is still very alcohol driven now, but not as much as it was before. So, you get 7,000 people in there that are scared. And then of those 7,000 people, you get probably 5,000 of them that are drunk. So now you've really got about 14,000 people in that park because they're all acting like a bunch of idiots.
Oh,
and they're all
God.
Putting their hands on people.
I mean, 5,000 drunk people in any situation is
not great.
Yeah, but in that situation, holy cow.
And we all have horror stories. We were laughing last weekend, like rehashing all of the stuff. Like I've been peed on and I've been punched in the back of the head and I've been punched in the back, and people have had charges pressed on them for stuff that's happened in my area. And it's just what happens. When you go to an alcohol driven event that people are going to be stupid, and you just got to figure out how to make it work and roll with it for the rest of the night until you can put everything back together. But our goal was to always have everything running at 100%. So, the technical supervisor of the entire department, consumer events department, a guy named Chris Lasnik, who I adore, he would always say that, we're going to open the night, we're going to close the night just like we opened the night. So everything's going to be at 100%. So even if it's 11:55 and a light goes out and we're closing at midnight, you still got to go fix that light, because the last person that came through it should see it at the same level as the first person that came through it. So you're constantly fixing all night. If it's something that can't be fixed, then, as soon as we close the event and clear the house, get to fixing it.
Last question about all that. Do you miss it, and would you ever go back?
I do miss it. I miss what it used to be.
Oh.
It's not the same event anymore. I mean, it's still scary. It's still a beautiful event. But I feel like, oh gosh, I don't know how much of this I should actually say. Corporate wise, I feel like they're losing focus. I feel like it's more about the money than the actual art. Enjoyment from the guests. So I do miss that, and I would not go back to the park, and not for any other reason other than the fact that there's just so much that has changed. I still love the people. I still see them all the time. Like I have 8 people that I talk to on pretty much a daily basis from that park that are still a huge part of my life, but it just doesn't feel the same way. It's not and a lot of the people that I worked with there that were my chosen family have all moved on as well. They're in different places too. So it wouldn't feel the same anyway, going back and being like one of the only people, one of the only OGs, so to speak. So, yeah.
So because Amy has done so much when it comes to stage managing, I wasn't even planning on mentioning this during the podcast, but it just hit me. Don, do you know how much Amy was a savior at a plethora of my professional wrestling shows?
I do not.
Amy, can you explain to the world, like, how you became the absolute best at something at my wrestling shows in a world where people cannot get shit done?
I'm assuming you're talking about the walkout music?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Amy, it happened to me 2 times since my comeback.
Oh, goodness. So, Todd, I'm sure you have seen a match or two to know that everybody comes out to their own entrance music. Mm-hmm. And one of the venues that Sammy and David and Tony were wrestling for had a guy that was running their sound for them that did not know how to do anything.
She's not
when
wrong.
It came to the audio aspect of it. So like, and I don't know why this one sticks out in my head, probably because the number is so ludicrous. There were these 2 tag team partner, 2 guys, I can't say they bragged that guy.
The Shane twins, was it?
No, the ones in Chipley. They would walk out to Wanted Dead or Alive.
Yeah, I can't remember their names.
Yeah,
but yeah, I remember.
So that was their entrance music, was Wanted by John Bon Jovi. But they would only walk out at a certain point in the song, and that certain point in the song was 2 minutes and 28 seconds into the song. So they would play the music, and then they would just play the music for 2 minutes and 28 seconds, and then they would walk out after they had already announced the guys. So everyone's just sitting there like waiting for them to walk out.
Oh my God.
Like it's ridiculous. So it was that kind of like, everyone has that point where they're like, this is when I want to walk out. This is what I want it to be saying as I, bust through that curtain or wherever, flip over that rope, whatever it may be. And they didn't know how to do any of that stuff. So they were just like guessing, we're just going to hit it here and then we're just going to let it play. Or they wouldn't even play the right stuff. So it got to a point where I was tired of it and I was like, this is embarrassing. Like I get secondhand embarrassment really, really bad. And I was so embarrassed for everyone, like not just the guys, but like the people that are running this. Like, how can you be proud of this? It's so simple. So I just had everyone send me their music and where they wanted to walk out, and just edited it all and dropped it onto a CD so that all we had to do was just hit track, 7 or 8 or whatever and know where they were at.
Well,
so,
it's interesting, isn't it? Like a lot of people don't know from like stage management, like what an art it is to be able to call a show and to like not just like, sure, you have your cues in there, but I've had plenty of experience where somebody who's gonna call that cue artfully and somebody's gonna just call it by the book. And while it might feel right by the book, it's certainly different if somebody is feeling the show at the same time. So what do you find is your I guess your relationship with like a prompt book, and how do you feel like you connect with a piece that you're managing?
Oh my gosh, my stage manager book is my Bible. Like it's and the way that I was taught. So I don't have any formal training in theater. Everything that I know is because I've done it for 20 years. 25 years. I did my first spotlight when I was 13 from the rafters of the church that my dad was a minister at, so like that, it's all of that kind of stuff. It's not formal training. So I learned on the fly for most of my stuff. And what I learned is, especially after the travesty that was the first show, that the way that I write my stage manager book for each show has to be so clear and concise that if I were to, if I were to say, have a seizure, which is quite possible and can't be at the show, somebody needs to be able to walk into that stage manager booth, open the book, and know exactly who goes where and when to call a standby for a cue and when to call a go for a cue. And it needs to be that clear and that concise. So for me, I have multiple versions of the script. Like the initial script where we're doing our first blocking rehearsals is, just scribble all over the place because the director's going to change their mind 5 times. I'm not going to set anything in stone until we're basically in tech week. Once tech week is done and I know that this is what our end goal is and we're staying here, then I'll rewrite everything in like a black fine point Sharpie pen so that it's bright and everything is color coded. Like our lights are one color and our sound is another color, and they're all highlighted, and everyone has, their own book. I'm not going to give my lighting person a book that has any of the sound cues in it because that's just going to be confusing, especially if you're doing something like a musical where you've got a bunch of lighting cues going based off of whatever the song is, if you're not fortunate enough to have a lighting program that is programmed to the sounds of the song, So, stage management book is my Bible when it comes to calling a show.
And this is how Amy is in life too. I mean, because boy, am I opposite of all that. Don, you know me, man. I am just like, jump out and let's go, So like Amy traveling with me to freaking anywhere, Amy taking me to someone's wedding. Like I know that I'm going to be okay as long as Amy's by my side. Like if you want a stage manager or a life manager or any kind of manager, like she's the best in the world. She's the one that has your back and will make sure the job is done and done as best as it possibly could be. Number one.
Oh, I try. That's my goal.
You make it look so easy.
Don, have you ever seen any of the Cirque shows, Cirque du Soleil?
Not in person.
Okay.
No.
So there is, I think it's on Prime. I'll have to look it up. But there's a documentary on Cirque du Soleil called Without a Net. And it's a documentary that they did after the pandemic when they were reopening the show, the water show in Vegas.
Yeah.
And there's a point in there where they're talking about the lifts, the underwater lifts, that they're having an issue. And the stage manager was like, well, we'll see. Like, maybe we're going to have lifts for this show. Maybe we're not. And the narrator was like, so what do you do? Like, what's your next step if the lift doesn't go? And he goes, oh, well, then we go to this part of the book, and like flips this. I kid you not, it's like a 5-inch binder. You should watch the documentary itself is amazing. But that one scene, like my mom also stage manages theater as well. She started just a few years ago. And we were watching that at the same time, her in Tallahassee and me here. And that one scene came up and I sent her a text and I was like, did you see that fucking stage manager book? She's like, I wouldn't even know what to do. Like it's just, it's so intense. And if you ever have I think it's 90 minutes, you should definitely watch it. It's
totally
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of mom and dad, I mean, Amy's parents are just the best. Her dad works for the church and is just a rock star. I mean, legit, he is a rock star. And her mom, oh man, I can still hear her screams from my wrestling show saying, "Kill him, Sammy! Kill him!" Dude, you'd be watching back the video and you could kind of hear the crowd, but you could definitely hear that. Well, I want to ask you though, Amy, like, what was it like? You know, your mom has been on some of the shows you've done. What's it been like working with your parents?
Don't do it. Don't do it. 100%. Don't do it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, she is. Oh my gosh. God love her. I do love my parents. My parents are my best friends. But my mom is a lot on any day. She's just very high energy and she's got a huge personality. And she'll tell you too, like she still says that I picked on her when I was stage managing her, because I stage managed her for 2 or 3 shows. I know of 2 at least. And it wasn't that I was like picking on her. I just needed her to focus and do what she needed to do. But because I was her daughter, telling her that, she did not want to hear it. And it was, it's very tumultuous at times. It did make for some really great stories. And you know, we have lots of fun memories from those shows, but oh man,
she definitely
if you have the option, don't do it.
I mean, she had such a stage presence at the show I went to, and man, when you meet her, you never forget her. Just one of a kind, best of the best. Oh, special families. Yeah. Hey, we're I can't believe we're already getting close to the hour, but we can't get out of here until we talk a little bit about your work with sharks.
Yes.
That's one of your most recent endeavors, working at the shark conventions. Mm-hmm. What do you do for them?
So I am the special guest coordinator, maybe. I'm not real sure what the actual title is. I just know it's like I'm on the leadership team. So I actually started working with SharkCon the second year of SharkCon. We just had technically this was our 11th year, because our 7th year was during COVID and it was virtual instead of live. So, but we celebrated a SharkCon 10 this year instead of 11. But I started the second year with them. Amber Whistler, who worked with me at Busch Gardens, she worked in zoo, and I worked with her a lot for Howl O Scream, because the zoo department was the one that would do the VIP tours. And she asked me if I was free one weekend to help volunteer at SharkCon, and I was. So I voluntold my roommate as well, and he and I started just as regular crew members at that point, volunteers, just, you know, kind of running around making sure that everything was good. And then once Spencer and Sarah, who are the ones that run it, SharkCon is Spencer's baby, and Sarah is his wife, who was a Reiner keeper at Busch Gardens. Once they found out my background, then they were like, oh, we want to have you work with a special guest. So I am in charge of the speakers and the special guests, making sure that basically they have what they need.
You want to name? You want to name drop?
I can name drop for you. So we've had numerous times. We've had Mr. Richard Dreyfuss, he's a whole lot of fun. Keeps you on your toes. We've had Ian Ziering. We've had, the whole Sharknado franchise.
Yeah.
Anthony Furtado, the director, was there, and Ian was there, and Cassie Serbo and Gina Nolan, who were all from the Sharknado franchise. And then we had the people from Two-Headed Shark Attack, I think, Arnie Hudson, Kurt Angle.
Oh, no way! Kurt Angle was there.
You knew Kurt Angle was there.
I know. I just was saying words. Oh my god.
I was like, what?
Pandering for the audience.
Yeah. So Kurt Angle was there. Let's see, Lance Guest from The Last Starfighter and Jaws 3, and just we've had all kinds of different guests there. They're a lot of fun to work with. I've made some really good connections with some of their managers. One of them, we see him every year pretty much. He's a really great guy and calls me Sunshine for some reason. I'm not real sure. That's never really been something that people call me, but that is something that he calls me.
Hey,
he's a great guy.
As a kid of the 90s who grew up with 90210 and also enjoyed some Sharknado, how was, is it Ian or Ian?
It's Ian.
How is Ian his He seems like he'd be a really nice guy.
He is. Yeah. That whole crew, that whole cast was really, really great. And the first year that they were there, there was a woman who came in with her son, and she was talking to Anthony Furtado, and her son's name is Finn, which is what Ian Ziering's character's name was in Sharknado. And he didn't get to see Ian Ziering the year before. He's a special needs child, and he was in the hospital, so he didn't get to come to see Ian Ziering. But his mom came the next year when Anthony Furtado was there and told him, Anthony, about her son and his name being Finn and all of this. And he was there that year. He was actually with her. So Anthony picked up the phone and called Ian Ziering and handed him the phone. And they talked on the phone for like 20 minutes.
Oh my God.
And the kid was just like beaming from, ear to ear. Like it was really cool. I have not had any really dramatic special guests or speakers. Had a couple that were kind of hairy at times, but none of them that. No, we actually thought we were going to have her this year, and thank God we did not.
Yeah, she seems she seems interesting.
I am trying so incredibly hard for next year because Spencer asked, he's like, if you could have any special guest on your panel, who would you want? And I was like, well, there was this movie called Three-Headed Shark Attack, which I don't know if you know where I'm going with this, Sam. But
I've only seen the poster. I don't know who's in it or what it's about, other than a three-headed
shark. So there's this really cool little Chicano man in it named Mr. Danny Trejo.
Oh.
So I'm trying.
She is a bitch
to get him booked.
She just that's my next book I'm reading is his biography because Amy has just been telling me for months now to read it.
Oh,
yeah,
that would be amazing.
So I am like, I want him so bad. I want him to be there so bad. That would be probably the only celebrity that I fangirled to. I fangirled to one of our scientists, but he would probably be the only one that I would fangirl, celebrity wise.
Yeah. The friggin' man. So, I mean, we are on 1 hour. We could go into how you friggin' build dinosaurs and do all kinds of other crazy things. But I got to ask, Amy, what did you have goals for the future? Other creative jobs, stage managing, whatever that you're hoping to do in the upcoming years? Or?
Yeah, I would actually like to create and design my own haunt. I am moving back to Tallahassee in the next week or so. I actually had a really promising interview this morning for a position that would be great. And it would allow me to be back in Tallahassee near my family, but also still give me the outlet to do
What do you mean though?
Spend the time.
Do you mean like find a location, like you build it from the ground up, or what do you mean?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. And I've got a few friends up there that are really into the haunt kind of stuff as well. So I think with the connections, hang on, the connections that I have up there, that, you know, maybe in a couple years I could actually have an area. I could have a venue that I could not start building it in a couple of years, but have built in a couple of years to actually have my own haunt. I would love to do it, even if I do it 1 year and it doesn't do good, like just to be able to have done my own haunt.
Have you thought about have you thought about like what the theme would be and all that?
Oh yeah. One of my projects that I had to do at Busch Gardens for one of my interviews there was design a house. So I've already designed a house. And when I pitched it at a different, like, I don't know, soundboard, I think is what they were calling it, at Busch Gardens, the VP of entertainment afterwards said, I don't like these houses anymore. And I was like, why? And she's like, because that was really messed up. And I was like, oh, my bad. So I pitched it to mom and dad before that whole thing, just so that it was, you know, I wasn't nervous. I wasn't going to be anxious about it. And mom and dad were in Tampa visiting me at that point and drove home the same day. And this was when Lawson was like probably younger than Sora. She was just toddling around. So Dawn Lawson is my 13-year-old niece. And mom told Laura that she should not let Lawson be around me. And then she told dad, she apparently looked over at dad on the way up and she goes, Dad, I'm worried about Amy. And he said, why? And she said, so she's fucked up. And told me that she was praying for my soul.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you have one of the best souls that I've ever come in contact with, and it is now a dream of mine to come down to Florida, party with you, hang with Mercury, maybe even Tony, and if you would allow me, scare some people at your haunt for a night. That would be a dream come true.
Oh, hell yeah.
And if you get that house together, hopefully Sam will let me know, and maybe I'll make it down there and allow myself to be terrified for a few minutes there.
Yes, I am down.
Amy, I just wanted to say thank you, and I also want to tell you that my face hasn't hurt this much from an interview ever. I have been smiling ear to ear since we hit record. It is so nice to talk to you over some microphones.
You too. I had a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Don, anything else, man?
No, thank you so much, Amy. Such a pleasure talking with you.
And I just want to
you're welcome. Thank you.
I just want to say, you know this already. I love you, Amy.
I love you too, Sammy.
All
Tell
right.
everybody I said hello and give Elvis some hugs for me.
All right, will do. See ya.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, she's the best.
The best.
All
She's
right.
very cool, Sam. I'm so glad that you brought her on this little show of ours. That was so many twists and turns to this story.
I had no idea she was homeless and arrested. I can't wait to find out about that.
Yeah. Let's keep that off the podcast. But such an amazing story. Real pleasure.
Yeah, dude, and hopefully she's definitely gonna come visit me sometime. My kids call her Aunt Amy. She's just the best of the best. So, Amy, thank you, and Don, you have an anniversary to get to, don't you?
Yeah, I gotta run.
All right, see ya, people.